It's time for another live podcast.
Hello and welcome to Nerd vs. World, episode 77. Mr. Nerd goes to Southampton.
Woohoo.
I'm Brendan.
I'm Spindles.
And on today's very special live debut episode, we've got a positive sack full of stuff to talk about.
We have indeed. It's been a little while since we've been on the air, so it's nice to be back in a live where everything can fail miserably in a heartbeat.
So no pressure. Yeah, so I've made a list.
You've done prep.
I know.
That's entirely unlike you.
So we've got Logan to talk about.
Yep.
Seen that now?
I have now seen Logan, yes.
I watched Life the other night.
I saw the trailer for Life before Logan, and I can't say I'm impressed.
Yeah, I accidentally saw a horror film.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, not a fan of horror films. Iron Fist.
Yes.
And then there's a couple of more bits and bobs. I have this weird theory about weird science in the Breakfast Club that I came across whilst doing the Ready Player One challenge. We'll talk about that for a bit.
Yeah, if anyone hasn't come across the Ready Player One challenge, we'll put a link to it later on. There's a list of all the films that we believe are referenced in the Ready Player One novel, and this is our second attempt at trying to watch all of those films in 1 year.
Yeah, the first attempt failed hideously. And then, of course, there's been a lot of trailer dump recently. Alien Covenant has had 2 trailers. Justice League trailer debuted yesterday. It's Guardians of the Galaxy. And wherever else we get to. But first, I just want to say, did you have a good time for your birthday, young man?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much. Yes. For those of you who don't know, it was my 40th birthday the other weekend, and as part of the celebrations for that, it just so happened that the MMORPG show came to my local town, and in the venue I was looking at hiring for my birthday. So, I ended up... Oddly, I ended up on stage as part of the event and was playing the part of an albino lemur, who was an albino lemur magician on a search for a person who murdered someone in a cheese shop, I believe was the... Yeah, a fromage affray, which was my favourite pun that I made of the evening. It was great fun. I mean, we'd seen the MMORPG show a couple of years ago at Nine Worlds, and it was just, as fate would have it, it happened to be in town when I needed to celebrate. And it was great. It was a fantastic evening. Lovely to see people from all over the country. People came down from Dundee for it. It was pretty awesome.
I was broken for days afterwards. My left knee was just absolutely shot from dancing.
I was fine the next day. It was 2 days later. I always get kind of delayed Mosher's neck these days. I think when you hit your late 30s, Mosher's neck tends to happen a couple of days after, and then it lasts for a good week.
Yeah. I suppose 40 is technically late 30s, isn't it? I'll let you off for that one.
Well, it was late 30s, and then Now I'm early 40. Oh, God, that means I've got to change the tagline on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because the tagline says about 230-somethings.
And I'm not Knoxville anymore.
Oh, so. No! Oh, that's terrible.
I'll update in a second.
No problems.
That's it.
So I drove back. I got home at 4:30 in the morning, back into Worcester, and I couldn't walk up the stairs when I got in. My knees completely seized.
I've got to admit, in hindsight, rolling around and doing air guitar solos was probably not the best idea.
I have on my phone 4 or 5 1-second videos of the floor because I haven't worked out how to take videos on my phone properly. So all those awesome selfie videos you were doing, not a single one of them came out.
Nice, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there are several very, very blurry photos of me looking very sweaty and dead being helped up off the floor, so, yeah. All in all, I think it was a particularly good evening.
It was quality.
So, yes, thank you for that. I'm reliving the pain.
But let's get on to the serious nerdery.
Yes.
Let's start with Logan. There's been a lot of talk about Logan. I've just been mentioned by the Superpod. Amazing.
See, we get interrupted by Twitter and everything.
Yeah, it's the wonders of live. We should do this more often. It's well fun.
Well, we're going to be doing it next weekend. Well, I don't know. It won't be getting broadcast live, but we'll be certainly recording the show live.
Yeah. So,
Logan.
Yeah, initial thoughts. I thought it was exceptional.
I would tend to agree with you, sir.
It was really, really good. I read Ben's review on the site, and I gotta say, I agree with a lot of it. The start of the film, the first 10 minutes, they are having as much fun with their rating as possible, and they are free and easy with the F-bomb.
Yes,
it got
indeed.
to a point where I was watching it and I was going, "Oh, come on, guys, we know you got the hard rating, so
But
drop it."
it never gets old watching Patrick Stewart drop the F-bomb.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that just will never, ever get old.
There's one scene, I think, where Wolverine's smashing the side of his door in anger, and he just litters the air with F-bombs.
Yes, I remember that bit, yeah.
So, yeah, that aside, I thought it was really well told. I thought the dynamic between Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman was the best it's been.
I've got to admit, just before we get into that, I have to kind of put across how confused I was in the first couple of minutes when the Deadpool teaser happened first.
I didn't get that. I went to the midnight previews and we didn't get the Deadpool teaser.
Right, you see, because it started up and I was like, what's going, that's Deadpool, why is Deadpool in I know they're in the same universe and they're technically all part of the same franchise, but why is Logan opening with Deadpool and there's a poster of Logan in the background, and this is just weird. And it took me a couple of minutes to kind of work my brain around to the fact that, okay, this is another advert rather than the start of Logan. But it was, have you actually seen it since?
Seen it,
That utterly fantastic. Utterly brilliant. If you've not seen that teaser for Deadpool, you just go on YouTube and watch it. It's utterly brilliant.
I've seen it, and the response to that teaser has kind of, like, it's got me towards my soapbox a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll strap in.
Okay.
Strap in for the nerd rage.
It's the same with Iron Fist recently, and every trailer that comes across, there are usually these trailer breakdowns of all the things you've missed, all the Easter eggs you didn't spot in the Deadpool 2 teaser trailer. It's like, well, actually, they're fairly obvious. Like, there's a Logan poster. He references Logan. I mean, all the guys who are writing these articles are really saying is all the things we bet you didn't spot because you're not a super fan.
Well, no. It's actually, here's all the things that are in the trailer. It's just a clickbait headline to make you click on it and go, oh, is there any that I missed? No, there isn't. No, right, but I've clicked on the article. I feel so ashamed.
But it's getting so frustrating because you see it all the time. And it's kind of redefining the term Easter egg. It used to be that if something had an Easter egg...
So you just need to move close to your mic a bit, mate.
Sure. Used to be the term Easter egg meant that you had to go and hunt for, either in the DVD menu or a really hidden reference. Like The Expanse has got some great Easter eggs. Like Serenity is mentioned on one of the ship lists in season 1. But these things like Logan poster appearing in Deadpool 2 teaser trailer, that's not an Easter egg. That's
it's a very blatant reference. Yeah. But come on, you're internet savvy enough to know that that's just a clickbait headline.
Yes,
and it worked. You clicked on it and you went through them all.
I did. It leaves me feeling salty. I'm really salty about it. But yeah, like, I don't know. Back to Logan.
Anyway, back to Logan. Visceral first few scenes,
absolutely.
You could see that they were playing with the rating. I think some of it I felt was a little bit unnecessary, even though they were clearly flexing their muscles. But
I was kind of surprised that it came out as a 15 over here because the violence in that was definitely an 18 rating. I would have thought. I imagine it didn't get the 18 rating because there's no frontal nudity and no C-bomb. I think that's what tips it over in terms of the censors. But yeah, it was visceral, which is good, because that's what it should be. The language isn't really a massive concern in terms of a good adaptation of the source material. But yeah, the violence was finally there. And yeah, it was unrelentingly bleak as well. Yeah,
I think it really was, and it kind of painted a very bleak picture of the future in America as basically saying that America itself wasn't particularly safe or interesting, and everywhere they had to escape across the border to be safe in either direction.
So yeah, up to Canada or down to Mexico.
Yeah.
I thought it was nice that on the Graham Norton show, Patrick Stewart revealed that he wouldn't be doing another one as well. So that was kind of cool.
Well, yeah, I think it was a very good swan song for, well, I would say for the entire original X-Men franchise. I think, if if you discount a couple of disappointing Wolverine movies and the aberration that is X-Men 3, then this forms a nice little kind of coda to where they got to.
Yeah. We can... And it stands alone a little bit as well, I felt.
Well, I think it does, but just because it's purely so different to all the rest of the films. I mean, it's essentially a Western.
Yeah.
You know, it's the old gunslinger who's hung up his guns and is forced back into one last mission. It is the story of Shane, which is even blatantly shown in the film and then is quoted later on at the end. You know, it's so blatantly an homage to Shane that it's right in your face. Although that did just make me think about the conversation in one of the Kevin Smith films about how Shane's dead at the end on the horse, and they have a big conversation about it. But that's by the by.
Star-making turn from X-23 as well.
Yeah, no, she was fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. I thought her as just that kind of feral child was utterly, utterly amazing.
And I think the pacing was spot on with that. Like, it was getting to a point where her just grunting was starting to get a little bit annoying, and then just as it did, they gave her dialogue in a torrent of Spanish.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was brilliant. I think I'm right in thinking that there must have been some kind of visual effects done on her, because she kind of had like Whedon vampire-esque kind of ridges in her forehead when she was attacking people. It looked very much like they'd kind of vamped her up a bit for those scenes to make her look a bit more feral. I thought that was an amazing touch.
But yeah, her fight scenes were incredible. Where do we think we're going to go with that? Where do we think Fox are going to go with that?
Do we think that there's going to be a whole new slew of next generation mutant films?
I would like that.
I see.
Would like the new mutants. That would be very, very cool.
I think it'd be interesting, but I don't think it could be sustained in a cinematic universe. I think it'd be nice if they spanned that off into the TV show, into kind of, you know, where they were going off to and what Eden actually is.
That'd be good.
Because it was only very, very briefly hinted at what Eden actually was, and a lot of people kind of came out thinking that the building on top of the hill that they went to was Eden, but it wasn't. That was like a staging post. Yeah. And then they crossed the border and they had a very brief radio contact with someone on the other side who said that, you know, that it was okay for them to come over and they'd be provided asylum there. So I think it'd be interesting to spin that off into a TV show and explore that a bit further. But then again, I have my usual reservations about Fox creating sci-fi TV shows and killing them after one season.
Yeah. We're still fairly bitter about a couple of them.
Firefly.
I think so. Yeah. I think Marvel and their TV tie-ins are actually pretty decent. Even the ones not controlled by Fox. I mean, are ABC Fox?
No. ABC are different. The Marvel TV stuff that's all Netflix now.
You got Netflix for the tie-in with the MCU, and
ABC is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
And there's Legion.
There is Legion. I've not yet watched Legion.
Legion's fantastic.
Yeah?
Yeah. Legion is up with The Expanse as one of my favourite shows of this new season.
Can I just have a reverent moment of silence for The Expanse, because it's so good. What a show! Sorry, I absolutely love it.
I just binge watched season 1 again on Netflix. It is even better on a rewatch.
Yeah. I've rewatched it, and more of the ones from the start of this season, especially now since I finally understood that they were doing 1.5 seasons per book at the moment, and that kind of solidified for me why they brought a lot of characters in a lot earlier than I was expecting them.
Yeah, it's an unfair show to every other show out there because it is just too good.
It really is.
Hard sci-fi in space. I think we've gushed about this TV show on a number of episodes, to be fair.
But it never gets old.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it just doesn't. I mean, because I'm still making my way through the books, so I'm now near the end of book 4.
See, I haven't read the books.
Well, neither have I. Audible, but, you know.
So, yeah, I don't know. Expanse aside, Legion is the...
So what's the premise of Legion?
Well, Legion is based on a really old Marvel comic. David, who's the central character, is Charles Xavier's son.
Okay.
So it's...
Charles Xavier and who?
I can't remember who Professor X knocked up. But, yeah. It's a really confusing show to get into. It took me a few episodes because it's all about X's son being this really, really powerful telepath and telekinetic. A lot of it takes place in his brain for the first episode, and then it switches to the other personalities that are inside his brain.
Okay.
And there's flashbacks to all sorts of things, and it's very much a case of what is real, what is not. And then there's a whole revelation that actually some of what has been his memory has been altered by a secondary external force. Mm-hmm. If you've read the comics and you have any idea about Professor X and some people he's battled, you would know exactly who was doing the manipulating of David's mind.
Okay.
But it's well worth a watch. It's well worth sticking with. It's got Aubrey Plaza in it, who is just an absolute revelation.
And where can one shove that in one's eyeballs?
The usual places, if you were to watch it.
Okay, yeah, but nowhere official like Netflix or Amazon or.
I think it's on. It's on Now TV.
Okay.
On Sky Atlantic. You can catch Legion on that.
Right, so Sky Atlantic. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, other than that, go to your usual
points of procurement.
Yeah. But it's good. It's a different sort of superhero TV show. It's massively different from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay.
It's probably not particularly safe for children.
Okay.
I would say some of the content they deal with is definitely adult, and some of the interpretation of mental illness is also probably at a level that's probably too much for 7 p.m. TV shows. But it's awesome. Confusing as balls, but awesome.
Fair enough.
We still haven't finished Logan, have we?
No, we haven't.
Right,
no.
Okay.
But you touched on the mental health thing there, and that kind of leads in nicely to what I thought was one of the best handled bits of Logan, which was in how they dealt with Professor X later in life. And it's the concept of what happens to the greatest mutant mind on Earth when it essentially loses its marbles.
Yeah, when it loses control of itself, it's a terrifying prospect. And we saw, you mentioned very briefly earlier on X3.
Yeah.
And Jean Grey losing control of her mind in that film. We see the sort of devastation that powerful mind can have. Logan did it so much better. Logan did everything better. Let's just be straight up that way.
Yeah.
From the start, we were always kind of worried about it because it's a Fox interpretation of Logan.
I was cautiously optimistic that it was going to be a good Wolverine film.
When we got the hard R rating in the States, we then became more optimistic. And then when we saw the trailer, any trailer with Johnny Cash makes anything look amazing.
Yeah.
But it looked exactly like... It definitely called out to the comics.
Yeah.
The old comics. The whole road trip vibe of X and Logan. But yeah, it handled the mental illness thing really well. And that's where all the involvement with the characters came from. Like the action scenes were great, but it was actually the relationship between the three characters. X-23, Logan, and Professor X, and Caliban.
I thought Stephen Merchant was fantastic in that.
He was fantastic. It was the very personal story of the film that made it so engaging.
I like the relationships when he first wanders in, and you see the relationship between him and Caliban and Professor X, and they are like an old married couple who are living together, and everything that one does winds up the other to the nth degree, and he started it and he started it. I loved that interplay.
Yeah, it's the odd couple with claws.
Yeah,
it's really, really good. So I think I kind of agree with Ben's rating as well. I might even push it towards a 10 out of 10.
Fair enough.
I think it is. It's right up there as one of the best comic films I've seen. Yeah. Oh, unfortunately, I don't want to see Life, and Life was awful.
Life sucks.
Oh man, that's so bleak. Sorry. Taken out of context, that's the worst thing you could possibly hear right now. Yes. Yeah,
I saw the trailer for it at the beginning of Logan, and it to say it didn't grip me is an understatement. Which, considering the trailer was all about something gripping something.
Yeah, it's terrible for the most disappointing reasons, because it actually starts off quite promising. Now, I was unaware that it was meant to be a horror film, and as we said earlier on, I don't like horror films. Event Horizon ruined me in terms of horror.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I sat down, watched the trailers, and it comes up with the classification. It says strong horror, violence, and gore. And I was just like, I might just walk out. I might just leave. But I bought popcorn, so I stuck it out.
That's the mitigating factor.
Yeah.
I've spent money on popcorn, therefore I'm sticking it out.
There was no one else in the screen, so I could have walked out without my anxiety tripping. And I'm glad there was no one else in the screen, because I was shouting at the screen all the time, like, no, don't go in there, no, you fool, and swearing a lot. But it starts off really well, and you have this idea that the guys are on the ISS, and they're waiting for a parcel to come back from Mars with the first samples from the Martian surface. And it's all about the camaraderie. You have like a very alien type of feel to it, where they're all the banter in the cheek, and you've got Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds, so you know,
Deadpool in space.
Yeah, you know it's going to be quite funny. And then they find this little thing, and then everything just goes wrong. And this thing gets out, because of course it's going to get out. There's no drama if it doesn't. But then the film falls apart because it doesn't actually remain coherent to the premise it's set up. So when the thing first attacks, they use an oxygen candle to burn it off someone's arm. It's afraid of the candle, it goes away. And then later on they're saying we're going to use it as bait to attract them to these candles. It needs the oxygen. It needs it to live. And that's within 10 minutes of an extended set piece where it's outside the ISS in the vacuum of space. Like, does it need oxygen? Does it not? Where's this going? And it ends up with two survivors. I'm going to spoil this film. We don't usually spoil films on this show, but I'm going to spoil this one because...
If you don't want to hear, fingers in your ears now.
It riled me up so much.
Go on then.
So you've got the two survivors. You've got Jake Gyllenhaal and I forget the actress's name, but he's going to take the creature in one pod off into space, and she's going to get back to Earth safely. And then there's a 10-minute sequence where they're cutting between inside of one pod, inside another, and something goes wrong, something gets flown off, and you're not sure which one it's going to be, and then eventually you see a pod just land in the ocean on Earth, and a Korean boat goes out to see who it is. And I'm just going, Eddie's in there. It's blatantly in there. The most disappointing ending to any film ever. But
well, yeah, it's blatantly, let's do a second one on Earth, because it'll be even better.
And he opens up the hatch. You see Jake Gyllenhaal going, no, don't open the hatch, don't open the hatch. And he's covered in just crap everywhere. And cut to black. And I was just like, brilliant, wonderful, good job, guys. Like, didn't see that coming at all for the last half an hour of the film.
Okay.
What a waste.
So there will be a sequel,
there will
undoubtedly.
Be a sequel. Don't watch it. Don't go and watch this film. Don't go and watch the sequel. It's absolute trash.
Okay, so I was exactly right in my thinking when I saw the trailer that I was never going to go anywhere near it. Marvellous.
Regular listeners to the show might realise that I haven't sworn yet.
I know.
That's because we have kids in the audience.
We're doing really well. We're being really restrained. Because I was aware there was a swear box, so I went and took 30 quid out earlier to cover it.
Yeah. Cool.
So we're doing all right.
We're
but this next bit might rile me up, because you're about to say, let's talk about Iron Fist, aren't you?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Yeah, all right. Do you want to start? While I sharpen my claws.
Okay, so we've had the wonderful of Logan, the terrible of Life, and now we've got the meh.
The meh of Iron Fist. Yeah, that just about sums it up.
Like, the first two episodes, I kind of let them get away with what they were doing because it was an origin story for Danny Rand to some extent. And I thought, fair enough. You've still got another 11 episodes to make this good. So episode 3 kind of started picking up, but it wasn't until episode 4 and the hatchet fight in the corridor and the elevator.
Yeah.
So I was like, finally, they're doing some callbacks to some old school kung fu. Great, this is what I've been waiting for the last 3 and a bit hours. And then the next few episodes were also good, up until the Drunken Master homage.
Yeah, okay.
And then from that point, from the twist about who Clean Wing was, and the end of Madame Gao, from that point on, the last 5 episodes, I was just like, this is really tedious.
Yeah, you see, it was always starting out on a bit of a loser with me, because I was never a fan of Kung Fu. I always found it to be one of the most irritating martial arts, but that's just me.
Oh man, no, I'm not having that.
Come on, I tried that. I did judo, I did ninjutsu, I did taekwondo, I've done a whole bunch of things, and kung fu was just dull.
Oh, I don't do them.
All right, okay.
This body is all a body formed by exercise, my friend. No, but like the old kung fu movies, the old Bruce Lee films, and then Donnie Yen and his Ip Man trilogy. Well, there's a fourth, I think, as well. They were all great. How do you not like the Wonderman?
Okay, no, fair enough. But I mean,
yeah.
I felt that a lot of the fight choreography in this was just dull.
Oh yeah, so did I. Which is why I was so disappointed with it.
Yeah,
like I wanted wire work antics. You know, I wanted like Matrix levels of wall flipping and ass kicking. And instead, I got a really, really sulky guy who couldn't work out whether he was sulky or happy to be back, whether he wanted to live the pious life of his kung fu inspired monastery, or whether he wanted to be the boss of his multinational organisation again. There was like no coherence to his character at all.
Well, and I think the problem was that it took them 4 to 5 episodes for him to actually figure out why he was even there. We've said this before about kind of Netflix and Amazon programs, that just because you have 13 hours in which to tell a story doesn't mean you have to spend 4 hours just messing about before you get to it. You've got to still engage people from the first episode. And I watched the first episode of Iron Fist and I went, he's a sulky teenager. He's essentially... Well, what they did in those first few episodes was they did a particularly bad retelling of Oliver's story from Arrow.
Yeah.
It was note for note perfect of what happened in Arrow, and Arrow did it really, really well. Mm-hmm. In this instance, not so much. I got frustrated by him. He didn't seem to have any conviction in anything he was doing, and was just sat around on the street just listening to an iPod.
Yeah.
Okay, how is this even vaguely engaging? And the whole story just revolved around him essentially abandoning his post, and then he went back and found out that everything's gone wrong because I abandoned my post.
Yeah, that makes the ending even more galling. Like Davos, his friend, is over there saying, "Come back, you've abandoned your post," and he's like fighting him every step of the way. And obviously, he's going to be his big bad anyway, and further on. And then at the end, he goes back and goes, "I abandoned my post, and it's all gone to poop."
Yeah.
It's like, well, pick a side, Danny Rand.
So the main plot line for me was just confusing and dull. The best characters in it were the Meachams. That was the most interesting part of the plot for me, was Ward and I can't remember the girl's name, and their family interplay, and then their dad being locked away in a room, and that was all really interesting, and was kind of like a corporate espionage type storyline that was going on within all of this, and I found that really interesting.
I didn't even like that.
I found the redemption of Ward as a character very, very good. His arc, I thought, was brilliant.
That aside, his arc was pretty good. But yeah, like playing on the naivety of Danny Rand for so long, it got frustrating. It got like watching Sons of Anarchy towards the end of that run, where it's just like, you're just causing drama for drama's sake now.
Yeah. I can't disagree.
But it Luke Caged itself a little bit as well, I think. As long as Madame Gao was still out and the Hand was still a thing seemingly under her control, it was reasonably compelling, because you knew they were probably setting up for the Defenders, probably setting up for the Beast, probably seeing where that goes. As soon as Madame Gao gets arrested, and then Meacham's father and was it Nakuto, the other Hand member,
Bakuto or something.
Bakuto, that's the one. Then it got really tedious, because it was like, oh, it's hand fighting hand. I mean, what's the point?
Literally, one hand doesn't know what the other's doing. Sorry.
And I do understand that.
The second hand.
I'm perfectly willing to give them a little leeway, because I know that in the comics the Hand has been run by many people. Daredevil's run the Hand, Wolverine's run the Hand, So there is that. But to do that now just doesn't seem to make any sense with regards to what they've set up so far in Daredevil Season 1 and 2, Jessica Jones, which, as far as I'm concerned, is still the best of all the series.
I would agree. Yeah.
and Iron Fist and Luke Cage.
I think it missed out on a lot of opportunities. That there were moments that were just crying out for other characters to turn up, like when they were sat planning the assault on the building towards the end, and they're like, "Oh, well, you can't do that. You're not bulletproof." And I was like, "But you know someone who is. Get him in. That would be awesome."
It would almost have been better if they had done Iron Fist as a backdoor cameo, like they did Spider-Man in Civil War. If they brought Iron Fist into the Defenders at that point, then that then ties off the Hand from season 1 to Daredevil, and gives him a reason for being there. But having him pad out 13 episodes just sucks. Unfortunately, Defenders has just wrapped filming, so they can't even course correct.
Question. I mean, you say about they can't course correct. Maybe they kind of sometimes when they're just filming stuff, even without feedback, they do learn something about the character and about sometimes it's too late to go back and reshoot the whole thing. But they go, maybe for this we'll do this, and maybe in the second series we'll do this. So, I mean, I think there was enough meat on the bones there to be able to course correct and to be able to go in an interesting direction. They
could probably flesh out Danny Rand's character a little more, certainly, but they've undermined everything they've done with the Hand so far.
Well, what have we got in between now and Defenders? Is there anything else? That's it. Essentially, you're left with Danny Rand being off in the middle of nowhere, and as far as I was concerned, that the main things that were drawing all the series together was either the Hand or the genetics company that were making the super serum.
Nuke's super serum. From Jessica Jones. I think it's the Hand. I think it's the Hand primarily because of the Elektra plot twist at the end of Daredevil Season 2.
Yeah, the big hole they were digging in the middle of New York that they didn't really explain.
They're clearly looking for the Beast.
Yeah.
They're clearly looking for the Beast. Hopefully the Defenders won't suck. Hopefully Iron Fist is the hiccup.
Well,
we're usually really positive on this show.
I think this is us struggling to find positive things to say about this, but yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it was inevitable that there would eventually be a Marvel series that we'd come out of feeling slightly let down. And I know with Luke Cage, we came out the other end of it thinking that the first half of it was all right, but that they never really had the bad guys to kind of make it seem threatening or make it.
Well, Cottonmouth was great.
Yeah.
Cottonmouth was a really good bad guy until they killed him off.
Yeah.
For no reason.
And then
fair play to Mahershala Ali for going on to win the Oscar as well. But, he was the good bad guy, and Diamondback was just terrible.
The second half of the series suffered really badly.
It's the exact same thing with Iron Fist, Gao, and then Bakute.
So we're not happy with Iron Fist either.
I'm trying to think of positives to take from it, because I like to be
positive about things. It finished. Eventually.
Positives, it wasn't 14 episodes.
Well, okay, to put things into perspective of how forgettable it was, I actually had to sit and watch the last episode again yesterday because I'd completely forgotten what happened at the end of it. It had that little impact that I was like, watched it again and went, right, okay, that's what happened.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give it some positives. I'm just going to, flip the table on the norm and be not cynical for a second.
You're going to be the optimistic one.
Yeah.
Wow. See how far we've fallen, folks.
The Drunken Master fight was really good. And that's it, I think.
Drunken Master fights are always good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Can't go wrong.
See, you use an analogy with.
Come on, jump on the mic, sir. People won't be able to hear you.
Use an analogy with the Avengers. I think we could see kind of something Hulk-esque, maybe. With the Hulk movies, they never managed to get him to work solo before. Mm-hmm. Then you have him in the Avengers. Who wouldn't love to see that Hulk in its own movie now? So, I think it's very easy to team up. Like, Danny Rand could be a really interesting character in that, and then they're queued up for Series 2 to do something a lot more special. I mean, I'm not quite as negative as you guys on it, but I do think it had its problems. It wasn't structured correctly, but I think there's enough meat on the bones there, as I say, to kind of spin it into a really interesting character for the Defenders and then Series 2.
To an extent, I agree. I do think that they can update Danny Rand, or we might see an evolution of him in the Defenders. My concern is what's the plot of the Defenders going to be now they seem to have taken away the building blocks of it in Iron Fist.
Yeah.
You see, that's the thing.
But have they taken them away, or have they put them in seemingly disparate places, ready for where they need them to be?
They've made the Hand look incompetent. Within fighting and two separate groups of the Hand, they made the Hand look incompetent. And they've got two characters now, Elektra and Colleen Wing, both great characters who have they have the potential to be so much better than just a plot device.
But imagine you bring in, like, you've got these two disparate groups of the Hand, and you get one charismatic leader to come in and unite them, and then that makes them the great enemy you want them to be. Like, there's so many ways which you can spin this out. Like, I don't know if it's the same writers who are behind Iron Fist who are doing the Defenders, or who's around that, but
I'm sure the people overseeing the series as a whole will be the same.
Well, I mean, I'm guessing that they're going to have people from each of the shows that are going to be involved, like who produced each of those separate shows are going to be sort of teaming up as writers, and that could kind of really save it and really put it in an interesting position for the future.
Yeah, it could do. I mean, I'm not giving up entirely. Like, I think what would be cool is we've established they can bring people back from the dead.
Yeah.
So I want to see them use their powers to bring Kilgrave back.
Yeah, I mean, batting average is 3 out of 4 though. So your batting average is 3 out of 4, which are really good. So the chances the Defenders are good is still.
Well, you say that. Like, Daredevil season 1 and season 2 were generally really, really good shows. But if they didn't have the villains they had, they wouldn't have been. Daredevil season 1 without Kingpin would not have been as good as it was. He made that series. And Daredevil season 2 was split into 3-4 episode stories, and it was kind of disjointed. But without the Punisher as an overarching character, again, the flow would have suffered somewhat.
But that's part of their writing, is they did put those elements in. I mean, are you saying through that you didn't like the portrayal of Daredevil on Zone and his team?
No, I'm trying to say
it was really strong.
In terms of 3 out of 4, I think the only truly great Netflix series so far has been Jessica Jones. That had a compelling lead actress and a compelling villain. The others were great. Don't get me wrong, but if the casting had been wrong for a certain thing, or a writing for fleshing out the characters hadn't happened, it wouldn't have been as good. I think what Luke Cage and Iron Fist fail is the characters weren't quite as well fleshed out.
Yeah, and it was the weak bad guys that let down both series because they didn't have a good enough foil.
I thought Luke Cage, I really loved that. I mean, it was nice to just put it in even though it was still in the same area of the world, it was kind of like it's in Harlem. It's kind of very much a black themed show. It had different music, a different feel to it.
The music was awesome.
It was amazing. So I thought just because of that, it was just wonderful to step into something which really felt like a very different world.
Yeah, no, and I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I mean, we said on the show before, the callback to sort of 60s and 70s blaxploitation movies in Luke Cage was great. The disco soundtrack, and then the modernising of that to the hip-hop soundtrack was also great. And from someone who's an audio engineer and has done film for, sound for film, I really appreciate when I see really good sync like that. It was great. Which I think makes me more gutted for Iron Fist. Because they could have called back properly to Kung Fu films, but they didn't.
Didn't forget Method Man as well, that cameo.
Yeah,
that was
awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
So I'll let you go back to your show.
That's right. Yeah, and another thing.
I'm not good at being in the audience.
This is good because we get feedback from people quite a lot saying that they listen to the show and they just want to chip in with arguments. So you just kind of made the point there. People just get involved and chat away. So yeah, it's good. We like the live vibe. It works.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Shall we leave Iron Fist alone? I think we've beaten him enough.
Put Iron Fist in a box and leave him there.
Okay, so next year there's a film coming out called Ready Player One, based on an awesome book by Ernest Cline. If you are a nerd or nerd adjacent or know someone who's a nerd
or nerd curious,
if you're nerd curious, if you have a love for all things 80s, check out this book and give it a read. Now,
Or the Audible, because the Audible's fantastic and it's read by Will Wheaton.
Yeah, that's true. And it gets very meta because he's actually in the book.
Yes.
As well.
Will Wheaton talking about Will Wheaton being president of something is, particularly good.
We made a list on the site of every film referenced in the book, and we are running a challenge to watch every film before the movie comes out. So I had a crack at Weird Science and Breakfast Club recently.
Both fantastic films.
Both fantastic films. And it occurred to me that because Anthony Michael Hall is in both films, I should see if I can get super nerdy and find some sort of weird theory. So I have. My theory is this. Weird Science happens entirely inside the mind of Brian from Breakfast Club when he's stoned.
Okay, so in the scene where they all sit down and they're all smoking. Okay. So Weird Science is a fever dream.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll break it down. The essay punishment in Weird Science is to write an essay telling the principal who they think they are.
Yes.
So Brian, while stoned, explains the idea of identity through the imagination of this character, Gary, from Weird Science. If you look at Weird Science, you've got Gary, you've got White, you've got Lisa, which are quite clearly a breakdown of ego, id, and superego.
Okay.
The mediator, the rational, and the impulsive. They're all there. It's all broken down. Both Gary and Brian use the girlfriend in Canada trope.
Yeah.
They both do that. Brian overhears Claire and Andy talking about a party. That party sticks with him whilst he's stoned and becomes the party at the end of Weird Science. Like, that party at the end of Weird Science is not like the portrayal of a house party in any other teen movie.
No, most don't involve nuclear missiles and
aside from nuclear
people
missiles
turning blue
but the food in that is all cakes and sweets and junk food. It is the ideal of a party from the mind of someone who's never been to a party and who quite probably has the munchies at this point.
Okay.
Bear with me.
I take it the brother is his self-loathing. Sorry if you couldn't get that.
Yeah, at some point. Handguns are a prominent part for both Gary and Brian. Handgun is the reason that Brian was in detention.
Yep, that's right. You took a handgun in school. Yeah.
And then Lisa uses a similar sort of handgun to rescue him from his parents.
What, a flare gun?
It was just the pistol.
Ah, because it was a flare gun that Brian had in Breakfast Club.
Was it? He doesn't say flare gun. It's just pistol.
No, he says a flare gun. He said, "Oh, I brought a gun to school," and then he says it's a flare gun, and they all start laughing at him.
Well, that's rude.
There you go,
You should turn the mic round the other way.
Take it to the tape for a second there.
Okay, like,
I'm going to have to get a replay on the field.
This is always going to be...
It's like a rope. You lose one string and it's still...
This is always going to be tenuous anyway. Okay.
Tapestry and it all unravels.
Bloody nerdy hecklers.
Gary defends the girls from the bikers.
Yeah.
In a very similar manner to the way that he sees Andy stand up to Bender.
Yeah.
When he's antagonising Claire, and they both take place at Shermer High School. The end of Weird Science, when she's just teaching in the school in the gym. It's the same high school.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's all Shermer in Illinois. Yeah.
So that was my theory. I was going to say poke holes in it, but the audience.
There you go.
It's only a very minor
hole.
Job here done.
Can you do 16 candles with that as well then?
You probably could with his character in 16 Candles as well.
But I think the other thing for me, watching back a lot of these films on the Ready Player One challenge list, like 80s gender politics is sometimes kind of uncomfortable to rewatch. John Hughes, for the most part, his films are kind of okay, but Weird Science is a really, really random outlier. Watching Weird Science is more uncomfortable with a contemporary gender politics attitude than any of the others, and that would make sense because it's all coming from inside the mind of Brian while stoned. You know? But
That's very good.
that's just my thoughts on the matter. It's an outlier because it's the only real John Hughes film that features someone turning into a turd.
A giant turd. Bill Paxton, God rest his soul.
Yeah. So that was my theory on it.
Okay.
I probably have read far too much into it.
Knowing you, yes, I can say full well that you have. I can't really pick holes in it, given that I haven't really thought about it to any great degree. But yeah, I suppose you're right that what happens in Weird Science is just complete fantasy and is completely so far removed from all of the other John Hughes films of that era, because they're all kind of very realistic high school portrayals. And Weird Science has giant missiles going through people's houses and people being blown out of chimneys with pianos. So I suppose it does kind of work as a kind of fever dream.
It worked. I was probably drunk whilst watching these two films again, so it probably explains some of it. But even down to things like in both films, both Gary and Brian use the same sort of jazz scat voice.
Yeah.
Brian does it in the library when he's stoned. Gary does it in the bar.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that cross over.
That's for the woman. Yeah.
Lots of things cross over.
I think it's actually a much more solid thing than a lot of theories. Like there's the Ferris Bueller's Day Off one, where
it's all in Cameron's mind.
It's all in Cameron's mind, and
the recent Grease one.
Oh yeah, the Grease one, which is the basically drowning. It's literally a flashback of Olivia Newton-John drowning. The entire
the beginning
movie.
of the film, and Olivia Newton-John.
I'm going to shift across, and you guys come and join us. For anyone who doesn't know, this is Dr. Squee and John back again.
It was what was the line? It was
Come and sit down, guys.
Let's all have a go.
We'll just take over your podcast.
It's this is obviously a lot shorter than your one, but yeah, basically is Olivia Newton-John is drowning and John Travolta saves her, and basically the theory of the entire movie is that it's her drowning and this is life flashing before her eyes.
So she basically just met this guy at camp very briefly, and she imagined this whole romance, she's actually drowning, so it's flashing before her eyes this guy who she met last, basically, that they had a romance, that she had a life, that all this stuff happened. And so the car going up into the sky at the end is actually her ascending to heaven.
Oh, why?
Because she's dead. And you know what? I thought that was such a fun, silly theory, and it's who would object to that? The writer or producer, I forget who it was, but they wrote this searing thing of no, that is definitely not what's happened. I intended this to be a real serious, for crying, get off your soapbox, man. It's fun.
I think that one is reading way far too much into it.
Oh, it is.
Your one is actually quite logical, really.
It's also extremely pretentious. with the regular id, ego, and super id, which I'm not gonna lie, that twigged this morning on the. As I woke up,
right?
Quickly just.
Thing is, I love it. I mean, I do love the theory, but I almost want to go. It's but it's the same actor and director, writer, and
which is the obvious answer.
That can help these things feel similar. I mean, it's even possible that he doesn't have that much range with his voices.
Yeah, it's fair.
What did I miss? Sorry, I need to get coffee.
Just the same actor, the same director.
And Grease is all a fever dream as she drowns.
Right, nice. Let's keep it light.
That's why she goes up to heaven at the end.
Yeah, everybody dies. So bleak. Cool.
What's next?
I think I'm done with that theory. What is next? I have Alien Covenant stuff.
Alien Covenant. Well, weirdly, I was talking about this the other day because a friend of mine was round at mine and he worked on the film. He did some of the visual effects, so I have to go and see it just so if I can try and see the shot that he worked on that he said it might be some rugby CGI. So I've got to watch it just to see if I can tell which shot it was.
Was it practical or visual? Or
no, he does the roto prep work. So he does.
Right, okay, cool. Yeah, because I think that was shot in Australia.
Yeah.
Funny enough, a little segue, we were in Australia doing the Doctor Who Festival in November last year. Was it last year or the year before? No, November 2017?
Yeah.
2016? 2015. And we were at the Fox Studios, and and basically one of the guys was going straight off of that onto the Alien Covenant, which basically all the BBC staff were like, let's not bother going home and try and get a job working on that for a year or so.
Can I just talk generally? Are we excited about Alien Covenant?
This is just to give you the little bit of background. In how excited Brendan was when Prometheus was first going to be coming out, and then the crushing disappointment of actually seeing it. So he still hasn't quite recovered from this, so the idea of getting excited about a new Alien movie might be a little bit premature.
That's the thing, I mean,
still a trigger.
Trying to tie that in and trying to make that crew have an Alien movie experience, it seems so tacked on and so forced to try and do that. Whereas the whole idea, I don't think they intended to do this when they started down the Prometheus route. They just realised Prometheus didn't work, it tanked, and now they're trying to backdoor it into an Alien movie.
Trying to make up for it, I think, in a lot of ways.
But it was the original Alien movie, it was a bunch of crew chatting for a lot of it, which was brilliant because it was great script and great acting, but obviously Prometheus was I just didn't really connect with many of those characters.
Like, I've said it before, when I was watching Prometheus, I was actually sat forward, like engaged, excited, and then between the last scene with the Deacon alien and the end of the credits, something just changed. And the guys I was with said, "Did you enjoy that?" I was just like, "I'm not sure, but I think I hated it."
Was that your fridge moment?
It was like, I absolutely hated it, and Alien Covenant, I was excited by the poster that just said "run." And then I was like, well, it's a Prometheus sequel, so let's rein it in.
Well, you can sell a movie from a good poster.
Yeah.
So.
Apparently there's a theory that it all happens in one of Magneto's stone dreams.
If the risen, I'm going to go right.
Was he using his helmet as a bucket bomb?
Then I saw the Last Supper prologue, and I was like, I could get reasonably excited for this. It revisited the choking scene from Alien. It even used the line, "The food's not that bad," and it felt like they've gone characters first. Let's have them get on. But then they said they're the first settlers and first terraformers, which made me think, well, where does Alien Covenant fit then?
Well, that's the thing, yeah.
Alien Covenant is set in 2103, and we know that in 2179, when Ripley returned to the Earth Station, she was unfamiliar with everything. That place, the idea of terraforming, it's massively out of whack.
I mean, there is a thing there that it can get lost maybe somehow. Maybe they don't make it back, maybe for some reason it gets buried.
She floated through the core system for 50 years. If people had been terraforming at any point in the core system, they'd have found her life raft.
Yeah.
Space is a big place, mind you.
I mean, for me, it just feels like a really sort of cynical attempt. I mean, maybe it's going to work out great.
Oh, the cynical...
It feels like they've got...
he's not started on cynical.
Oh, if you want the cynical...
well, they've got...
Ridley Scott recently announced that this is going to be part of a trilogy, but it's not the second film in the trilogy. Covenant is the third film. It's the second film release, but it's the third film. The final running will be Prometheus, a film called Alien Awakening, which is to come next, and then Alien Covenant. So what's happened is they've watched the rushes for Covenant, and they've gone, there are so many plot holes here. We have got to retcon all these plot holes with another film that's meant to go in between this and Prometheus.
Has that ever happened in history, that the third part of a trilogy was released before the second?
Not that I can think of.
And who's not going to hear that and think that, clearly hot mess. Who's going to think, they planned that one really well, that's intricate.
Well, I tell you what, every time I shoot a music promo, I think we're doing it a bit slapdash. Well, we only have a low budget, so...
Yeah, that was in a recent interview, and as soon as I saw that, I was just like, okay...
But
Covenant's going to be a mess.
I feel like what they're trying to do now is kind of... because they know Prometheus wasn't popular, they're trying to... get it so eventually it will join up with Alien.
And people will look back and go,
and
it's a good movie.
And now we can sell it as a box set. We can sell all the movies.
And then someone cut it together like Rogue One and A New Hope, and I join up.
Yeah, like the hatchet job of Episode 1 to turn it into a good film.
and not every series of films has to be an entire universe with spin-offs and everything. It can just be a great series of films and... I mean, okay, with Alien 3 and Resurrection, they already might have spent that one. But they were two great films.
He's a fan of Alien 3.
I'm a fan of Alien 3. I think that's a much more like...
There was a film in there. There was a good film in there. I don't think it ended up.
Alien is a haunted house in space. Aliens is a sci-fi shooter. Alien 3 is a chase movie. And it's actually a really good chase movie.
And I'll give it its dues that the director's cut version of it is really good, really Alien 3.
It's better, certainly, yeah. It's better.
But yeah, with Covenant, I'm not looking forward to it. And then they had the trailer for it. And at the end of the trailer, you got the Xenomorph on top of a dropship, head-butting the glass like an absolute fool. And I was thinking, you've got Inner Jaws, mate. They can pierce metal because they beat the APC and AVP. It's a lot of acronyms.
Too many TLAs.
Was he riding the dropship like Slim Pickens?
Yeah. More or less. He's all thin and spindly and just like headbutting the glass. It's just like, really, mate? What's up with that? That was the point.
Give it a break.
That was the point where I was just like, no, it's lost me again. The Last Supper prologue was interesting. The actual trailer was disappointing. It doesn't look right. It looks grey rather than black. It just looks horrible. It looks like really, really bad CGI rather than an actual physical scene.
That'll be the shot that my mate worked on.
I hope it's not.
At this stage for the franchise, you've got to worry. It's game over, man. It's game over. Who put them back in charge?
Do you want to do some sort of drop?
Yes, please do. Let's tell people about the charity.
Was that a mic drop? A multiple mic drop?
Yeah. You can do. Do you want to hear some work that Comic Relief do?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I need a wee.
I think we're getting so much better at talking about issues around emotional well-being, and thank goodness, because 1 in 4 of us will experience a mental health issue. 5 years ago, Cass found herself in a position where she needed help and simply didn't know what to do.
I felt so depressed and so just numb to everything. I couldn't do anything. I started self-harming when I was about 11 or 12. Just those difficulties at school where I was being bullied. And
this was as young as 13?
Yeah, I was 13 at this point.
So you had those feelings of not feeling like you wanted to go on with life that young?
It got to a point where I was really suicidal, that I was like, okay, I need help now. And if I don't do it now, I don't know what's going to happen.
Wish is one of the only face-to-face providers of self-harm support in the UK. What we've seen time and time again is that it is peer support that really is what makes the difference for young people who are going through self-harm. I don't think it's a stretch to say that this is a life-saving and incredible, life-improving service for so many people.
Often, self-harm is a response to something else that is going on. It's like a release.
It kind of went downhill when my mum and dad split up. I had friendship issues. I didn't really have anyone to talk to about anything. I think I was 12 or 13 years old when I started self-harming, which became progressively worse throughout the years. The more you do it, the more you become resistant to it, so you have to do it more to get the feeling that you've had when you first started doing it. If I didn't reach out for help, I would be...
I've begun to help run the group now. So I've come back.
Amazing.
I've come back weekly. I've done 2 sessions so far to help run it.
That's so amazing you're doing that.
I was like, yeah, you don't even have to ask. Yeah. I'll be there every week, because for how much it helped me, I hope that it could help someone else like that.
And do you think without the Wish Centre things would be different?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd even still be here without the Wish Centre.
No young people should have to go through such deep anxiety and depression on their own that they're getting to the stage that they're self-harming. So the Wish Centre is doing the most wonderful, vital and important work and saving young people's lives. I've got goosebumps just talking about it. So if you feel passionate like me, please, please donate tonight. Thank you so much.
I'd come to the children's ward at Redemption Hospital in Liberia. I had some idea of what I might experience, but nothing prepared me for seeing a child desperately ill, suffering from malnutrition. This is Tabitha and her father Alexander.
When the baby started sick?
Maybe 2 weeks now.
2 weeks now. What was the sign 2 weeks ago?
It was just fever.
Tabitha's mum is seriously ill, so her father is taking care of her on his own.
It's just awful to think that this still happens. That there's a little girl who's so malnourished that her dad had to carry her to hospital.
One in every 3 children in Liberia suffers from malnutrition. Put simply, they're not getting enough of the right food.
She's getting a drip now to try and get her temperature down and to just feed her body. But when we first got here, her little stomach was just going like the clappers.
She's severely malnourished.
Severely?
Yes.
Okay.
She's just 3 kilograms.
Wow.
And she's 4 months.
Right. How they're as composed is amazing to witness. You just sort of see incredibly skilled people saving a girl's life. If her dad hadn't brought her today, she probably would have died.
Yes, yes. If she the delay for 30 more minutes.
30 minutes?
Yes.
Wow.
Something bad could have been happening.
And will she be okay now?
Well, after we give fluid, we hope.
All Tabitha's father can do now is comfort his little girl.
When I left Liberia, I thought Tabitha was going to be okay. But when I got back, we actually found out that she died. Despite everything that happened, her dad insisted that we show the film. And it's incredible, isn't it, to think that in 2017, there's still children in the world that are dying from hunger. And that's where you come in. If you donate money, we can get emergency food to children like Tabitha, and they won't die. It's as simple as that. So if you can spare some money, then please give generously tonight.
Thank you.
Get involved. Email studio@superpod.co.uk. Tweet with the hashtag Superpod2017. Or you can phone us right now on 02380 971 030. That's 02380 971 030. We're raising money in aid of comic relief. To donate, head to www.superpod.co.uk and click donate.
Okay, welcome back to part 2 of the first ever live Nerd vs. World. Now, we've got a couple of impromptu guests who've joined us to wax nerdy with us over the last half an hour or so. Now, as you've joined up, gents, then I'm afraid you've made yourselves eligible to contribute to our Nerd vs. World list of 5 films that you have to see.
Okay,
so,
can I just ask that we all from now on talk like that drop so we get into the very dramatic Jeremy Clarkson-esque voice?
Okay, prepare your films, gentlemen.
Sorry.
All right, feedback. Squeak.
I didn't do it.
So, yeah, what we do is anybody who comes on the show, we ask them to contribute 5 films to our list of films that everybody needs to see. We compile this on the website, and it's all there, so you can have a look at it later on and see how yours ranked in amongst there. Yeah. But it's 5 films that you think everybody should see. So not even necessarily your favourite films, but just 5 films that you think everybody needs to see. So, John, what's up with you?
Blimey, you'd have to give me about 2 hours for me to actually compile this.
Well, that was the thing, is that we did it very, very impromptu on a show, and just so 5 films that you think everybody needs to see.
Right, well, I'm going to probably go down the route of 5 films that, or hopefully 5 films that I saw and I just kind of went, wow, which blew me away. One was Memento, which I vividly remember it. I was sat on my sofa, just sorting out electricity bills and stuff, and it came on, and the film ended, and I was still holding that same electricity bill in my hand in the same position, because it was it was that captivating.
Had you written yourself a note on it?
No, not to trust myself. So that's
interesting. I mean, an odd thing with that film is that I think it's on the DVD release, they've got a recut version of the film that shows the events in chronological order.
Does it work?
I don't know. I've never watched it, and I'm just wondering if it would detract from the whole film watching it in the order that things actually happen.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the suspense was obviously made up that you were just knocked sideways at the beginning of each scene, and you're like, hold on, how did this happen? How did it get there? And then obviously the next scene is the prequel to what you've just seen. So that as a little plot device works really, really well. Obviously, if it goes in chronological order, it may not.
I think it would lose a lot in the impact.
Yeah, let's take the thing which makes the film special out of it, and I'm sure it'll be much better. I mean, just
make it like a normal film.
Thank you, the internet, but no thanks.
This is a film about a guy that has perfect memory recall.
Just gets on with his day, really.
Let's start The Sixth Sense at Bruce Willis's graveside.
Plus, if he's remembering...
Spoilers!
I don't know. I mean, I think the thing about that film is I've watched it twice actually before, and the second time, even though I left quite a bit of time, it still wasn't long enough. Like, I feel like I have to leave it long enough that somehow I forget everything about it, because it's so brilliant the first time. It is a brilliant film. I don't think it makes it any less a good film that it's about the impact the first time you watch it, like The Sixth Sense or whatever else. But it's tough to recapture the magic when you rewatch it. It's the only kind of thing with it. And putting it in the right order.
Okay, cool. So second film.
Second.
Do you want me to jump in with the first?
You can jump in. Yeah, you jump in.
Give you some thinking time.
Has Requiem for a Dream come up before?
I believe it's on the list.
Yeah, I think it's on the list.
Okay, does that preclude me?
No.
Because I think that's one of those films, again, for very different reasons, it's one you only watch once. Just because your heart can't bear it. I mean, it is such a... it makes you feel something, and that for me is what you want. You just want to feel something from a movie, and it is so bleak and so dark, and you feel for the characters, and you just want some of them to do something right, and they never do.
I'm a big fan of Darren Aronofsky's movies. I mean, Pi is one of my favourite films of all time. I think it's fantastic, especially because Clint Mansell does all the soundtracks for them, and he was populated himself for one of my favourite bands in the day, and the fact that he's gone on to do all this soundtrack work is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many brave choices in it, and the idea that you're watching this old lady just die from her choices, and her son's messed her over, and it's just so bleak, but there's not... I can't think of another film which I've seen which allowed itself to be that mercilessly bleak. No one gets redeemed, no one gets better, and the fact... But you're so trained to expect that it's so unexpected when they don't, and that last scene, which I don't think we could talk about this time of day.
No, probably not.
I could do an impression of the line, but maybe not.
No. But yeah, it's a very special ending.
Okay, no, a great film.
Not a happy ending though.
No.
I'm busy looking on the internet trying to figure out how. You go with another one.
Station Agent, has that come up before?
That's... Yes.
I didn't even know that film.
Young Peter Dinklage.
Yes.
Before
that's
he
a great film.
Was known for anything, really. I don't think he'd done anything of note. He probably appeared in some stuff as...
I think he'd been an elf by that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of those times where he's kind of... No, I don't think he'd done Elf yet, the movie.
I think he had. I think it was...
Let's go to the tape. We'll look that up later, but...
Elf as in the Will Ferrell.
Yeah, it was pre-Game of Thrones, I think, but...
Because I'd not heard of him before, and I think I saw Elf when it came up. But anyway, regardless, he's probably had popped out in quote-unquote little people roles.
Yeah.
The ones which people shoved in, but he'd never been a lead in something that I remember, anyway. And certainly not... He's not a lead in Elf.
So what's the premise of the film?
Basically... Sorry, let me start from the beginning. So basically you get this guy who... partly because of his height and the way the world treats him, hates the world and just wants to live a life by himself. And they've got these wonderful scenes where he goes into a shop and people are trying to take photos of him, and you feel his discomfort, and you feel stuff. And then someone dies and leaves it. Like, he works in this model train shop, and the owner dies and leaves him the station house.
Yeah.
And he's big into trains and stuff, so he goes to live in this train house. And the guy who's reading out the will goes, "It's like, it's great. It's very picturesque, but there's just nothing up there." And his face just lights up.
It's ideal.
Yeah, and there's two other main characters in it, one of which owns a concession stand outside this train station, and another one who's this lady who's, is she a teacher? I forget.
I can't remember.
I'm watching a little while, but it's about how kind of each of them are really dysfunctional as people, and not because of his height, just because of kind of the way he views the world and everything. And between the three of them, they become a person, sort of, and they do make. Again, there's some nice points where they make poor choices, so it's not just a clear run to, we found each other, let's be happy now. No, and to begin with, they sort of, some of them don't like each other.
Yeah, it's a real outsiders film.
Yeah.
It's a group of outsiders. But yeah, I remember being very good.
Yeah, I'll add that to my list of films to watch.
Very nicely shot as well.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
A bit of a curveball here. Singing in the Rain.
Okay.
That's fine. Man.
I think I was probably about 27 when I watched this. And as a 27-year-old, you're like, Singing in the Rain musical, I don't want to watch that. But I sat down and watched it, and it was a beautiful film, and it just flowed very nicely, and it was very optimistic, and some amazing imagery in it as well. Yep. Some really, really, really nice,
iconic imagery.
Iconic imagery, especially the sort of dance sequence with the big infinity kind of staircase thing, and and it's a genre movie, and obviously kind of there's nods to a lot of it in La La Land as well.
Yes.
That I watched recently, which I really enjoyed as well.
He did too.
Yeah,
I'm still not going to watch it. So I'm a musical curmudgeon, I'm afraid.
It's good. It's especially anybody that works in the TV or film industry. When they watch it, they will just get every single scene. It works really well.
It's the same with Singing in the Rain.
Exactly, yeah.
There's a lot of behind the scenes and the blending of the diegesis. That. It's great.
A good feel-good movie, a slight polar opposite from Requiem from a Dream.
It's the anti-Requiem from a Dream.
It needs fun.
Every top 5 list has got to have that one go-to feel-good film, I think. So yeah, it's a good shout.
Cool.
There's a little-known film called Guardians of the Galaxy. No, I'm just joking. This, I think, is a feel-good film, but it doesn't... again, it kind of takes you in an interesting direction with it. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Now, it's Jimmy Stewart, known for It's Wonderful Life, and it is him with Frank Capra. The same pairing as from that movie, and it's a kind of political drama. But what I love about it is I think some movies these days are sort of scared of having an innocent character. Something I think Marvel did quite well on TV. It's like they, love or hate it. The Flash, I think is fantastic, but he is just a hero. He's just a light, positive hero kind of character. And so's the titular Mr. Smith in this, Jefferson Smith in this movie, played by James Stewart. And he is basically, he's a scout leader who's just like the biggest rube you're ever going to meet, and he gets chucked into the political machine in Washington. And there's this guy who used to work with his dad, who's become the most cynical a-hole, I hope that's good, known to, it's too late now, who's become the most cynical person known to man, but because he used to work with his dad, he sees his dad in this guy, and he sees the innocence that he used to have before he completely sold out. And you just see this guy gets totally pooped on, but eventually it kind of turns around. But there's a wonderful scene where they filibuster, which kind of like, now every time you hear filibuster in any American news story, it's always really, really sad what they're doing a lot of the time. But in this, it's the true meaning. He stood there for like hours and hours just talking. I mean, Alan must be sympathising with this character about now. And the second he stops, then he loses. Yeah. So he just keeps on talking till... Well, I won't ruin the ending, but, spoilers, it's only 70 years old or whatever it is. But yeah, it's a real good, feel-good movie, but it's kind of, takes you through places along the way, I think.
Sweet. Film 3.
I just came up with a whole bunch that all came out out during the late 90s, which was a kind of good time for movies because it was very this sort of weird dystopian future unfolding. But I got to say, Fight Club.
Excellent film.
It's such had such an impact on me when I watched it, and it was kind of almost pre-internet kind of time, and you kind of watched it. And at the time as well, for me being someone in their late 20s, I was it was like a wake-up call, really. It was like, oh yeah, these things aren't important, and it was a interesting message, and obviously being Fincher as well, every scene just looks delicious, and some amazing performances as well. So yeah, it still stands up.
Yeah, it does.
And there's just so many things in there that are important to filmmaking.
I think it's on the list already.
Is it?
It is.
Yeah. That's
It's fine because we actually end up with the list being ranked. So there are some at the top that have like 7 or 8 votes, and then it gets further down the list. To
it's on the more obscure. It's on the Ready Player One list as well.
It is.
It's a really obscure reference. They walk past Tyler Durden's house while searching for an egg.
What the paper?
Yeah, the Paper Street House.
Paper Street House, yeah. But also as well, there's so many things in it, me being a bit of a kind of tech head as well, there's so many interesting shooting methods and things that just...
There's all the subliminal flashes of him early on.
Yeah, and the kind of... and I will use the word time slice, not bullet time, because I do know... Tim McMillan, who invented the time slice camera, not way before the bullet time camera, but anyway, that's a whole another legal battle that didn't really happen. But yeah, and there was just so many things in there that just really just stood out and made me go wow. And to be fair, I got the DVD and. Basically listening to the audio commentary. It's one of the first DVDs I think that I listened to audio commentary, and listening to Fincher, Norton and Brad Pitt. It was amazing because you had this juxtaposition of Ed Norton being like this super intelligent guy, and then Brad Pitt going, yeah, look at that, whoa. And then I think there's Helena Bonham Carter on one of the other ones as well, which is a totally...
It's one of the first commentaries I ever listened to.
Yeah.
Was that DVD.
Yeah.
I love that when they're fighting in the car park towards the end, Ed Norton threw himself down those steps.
Yeah.
Like 14, 15 times, but they used the first take.
Yeah.
And
damn you,
they weren't even filming for the other ones. They were just putting his leg.
How many times do you reckon he's going to do this before he notices?
I think he's actually broken something. Sonic, get him to go again.
And Fincher
just one more.
Fincher talks about how the continuity department kept sending it back because there's a car crash scene where... obviously Tyler Durden's driving before the crash, but after the crash, Ed Norton gets out of the driver's side.
Oh, that's right.
And the continuity team kept sending it back, saying, "You've made a mistake here." And it's just like, no, I haven't made a mistake.
Watch the end of the film. Spoilers. And strangely enough, I watched it on DVD. I didn't see it in the cinema, and I didn't get it until the end. Which was good.
Yeah.
And then the brilliant thing is when you watch it again, it's a totally different movie. Yeah. If you didn't get it, the dead Bruce Willis I got straight away because you see Bruce Willis dying on the floor, and I kind of like, oh, hang on a minute, But anyway, I didn't get it, and I'm glad I didn't, because when I watched it the second time, you go, oh, Marla isn't insane.
Yeah.
So you get two quirky movies for the price of one.
Yeah. Cool.
Excellent. I'm going to go next with the Blues Brothers. I'm sure it must be on your list. It's on your list already?
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. I mean, there is everything in there. There is such fantastic comedy. They are cool. They just they are still if you see that picture, that represents cool.
Yeah.
There's such great guest stars. You've got Carrie Fisher. You've got John Candy. It's just people just pop up for these moments, and they're just wonderful. The music for it, they actually went to. I mean, they'd assembled the band which is used when they were doing sketches on Saturday Night Live, and these were for 3-minute songs, and they'd got genuine bluesmen who'd been behind some of the blues music for the last kind of 50 years. They were the guys, and they assembled them into a band. And so when they were doing the film, it was just there. And when they wrote it, apparently they wrote like a double script. They just kept writing. They just didn't know when to stop. So they had full backstories for all of them. You could have had a at least 15-minute section on all of them and how they got assembled. And then they'll go, oh no, we actually need to make this a sensible length film. The music is spot on. All the people they got, not just for the Blues Brothers band, but Aretha Franklin, Cab Calloway, it's just
Brown.
James Brown. Oh, jeez, yeah. I mean, just it's stunning. I can't think of much to say wrong with it. And anyone who thinks that they're above musicals, I want to go, this.
And I would agree with you. I mean, it was actually very, very late on I finally got around to watching Blues Brothers, and I would have probably been in my early 30s before I saw it for the first time, and it was phenomenal. I loved it, and yeah, as I said, I'm a bit of a musical curmudgeon, but that as a film I thought was stunning. I mean, obviously you know the songs from it, you know that it's Dan Aykroyd and Belushi, and they're a classic pairing, and I've seen them in a whole bunch of other stuff, and I have no idea why it took me that long to get around to actually watching Blues Brothers, but when I did, yeah, it's utterly fantastic film.
It's kind of an entry-level musical as well, I think.
Yeah, it's been
a lot of true musicals. The source of the music is often talk about diegesis, whether on screen or off screen or imagined. In Blues Brothers, they're playing the music, so it's on screen sourced. Whereas in Singing in the Rain, for example, a lot of it is it's emoting through music the feelings of the characters, whereas in Blues Brothers it's not necessarily different.
And they started as musicians in Singing in the Rain. That was, they hired musicians. It was the fact that I believe it was Dan Aykroyd was originally into the music, and he played it for John Belushi, and he goes, oh, we got to do these things, and to him John was going, no, shut up, we're going to sing, yeah, right. And so he played the music for him, and they just sit there probably getting stoned for kind of hours listening to this music, and he goes, yeah, so when do we start?
Yeah.
and he got so much into it, and they've said in interviews before how they weren't singers, they just became good singers. They practiced, they worked hard at it, the effort that it takes to become that good. And given that you've got these characters who are too cool for school, and then the next minute they can jump into a dance number and do that little tippy toe scene and do it seamlessly and then be cool again the next scene. Not many people can pull that off.
No. The whole Shake Your Tail Feather dance sequence is my favourite dance sequence of that.
And that shouldn't work. It should not work in that film, and then still then go, it's like, hit it, and then just be cool again.
But it's but obviously classic John Landis. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the thing is, as a kid watching it, I was like, oh yeah, no, that I get that. You know, all of the just stupid stuff that if you run it past a suit, an executive, they'll go, well, what's the relevance? It's just because it is so ridiculous, so over the top. It was a bit like the that shot with the neo-Nazis when they drive off the overpass, and then the car's like a mile up in the air. It's like there's no reason for it. Like, it is just funny.
I think it was a much freer time, I think, for filmmaking.
Yeah, and stronger, staunch directors back then.
Directors who didn't have to make a name to be able to have studio backing. Now you finally have to toe the line for 3 or 4 films, then they can make their passion project sort of thing.
And the thing is, I kind of because the style of the movie, it's so accessible at any age. I remember watching this when I was a kid, probably shouldn't have done, but I remember watching it, and then so when my son got to the age where I was like, he was about something like 12 or something, I was going, oh, it'll be fine, there's a couple of swear words in there, but it's pretty mild, I'm pretty sure. And I just kind of I blanked out the swearing because that's not what it's about.
Not a part
there.
Of it, really,
it's not. But if you watch the first 5 minutes of that, they enjoy the F word very strongly. It's like Patrick Stewart and Wolverine. They're having fun with it.
I've had a similar experience with the film Heathers, where you remember it a certain way, and then you introduce it to someone as something else, and you watch it like, oh, it's really not. I described it as Mean Girls with angst. To someone that I was seeing, it's like, oh yeah, let's watch this then. It's like, oh fuck, this is a really, really awkward film to be watching right now. I just
Okay, next one. Oh, this is a tricky one. I would probably say I'd probably see The Evil Dead.
Awesome.
The original Evil Dead, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say the original too. Yeah.
At the time, it was on the banned list, the BBFC banned list of what was classed as video nasties, and it was a really kind of bizarre rule because home videotapes came out and there wasn't any classification system in place, so they kind of scrambled and went, cannibals, oh no, that's terrible, we'll ban those, and that's got chainsaw in the title, so let's ban that, and anything that was a little bit counterculture, so, stuff got. The Exorcist got banned.
Things got banned for having nunchucks in them and stuff, But
long term, didn't that become the best thing to happen to these movies? Maybe not in the short term, maybe it might have messed them around in the short term, but in the long term, that's why they're remembered and why they survived, and why sometimes we even watch some of them and go, how is that on this list? I mean, not just tame by today's standards, there's some of them where you go, how was that not tame even then,
But now I can remember watching like a 8th generation copy of The Evil Dead, which probably added to it. A lot of those video nasties as such were sold at comic and video fairs, and my friends used to bring them back and we used to watch them, and he looked at, it added to it. When you watch a Blu-ray version of it, you kind of go like, it doesn't really have the same impact. But yeah, just watching Evil Dead, and again it was just the humour that you could make a horror movie as such, but it was funny, and Bruce Campbell is genius.
Bruce Campbell is a genius.
He literally just lights it up every scene he's in. And also for me, being a filmmaker as well, it was just seeing all of these techniques that they use, very very simple techniques to solve a complicated problem. And the easiest method's always the best. So
I always put up there with kind of the early Peter Jackson things in how they managed to accomplish things on a very very tight budget, and still make it look amazing on screen. Like Bad Taste being one of my particular favourites.
So and obviously there's been a huge legacy with the Evil Dead franchise, and obviously with Ash vs. the Evil Dead as well.
Have you been watching that?
I've watched the first series. I haven't watched the second yet, but yeah, it was just I was just trying to think of horror movies, and I just thought, well, that was the one that stuck out. That again, I just got it. It was like, oh no, I get it. I get what you're doing. And a lot of the time, some of the greatest movies that come out are the ones that the studios don't think will work, but it's the audience that connects with it, and when the audience goes, yeah, no, I get it, I get what you're doing, is a winner.
I enjoyed that with those movies, that the movies don't add up. So the second one, it suddenly went from being 4 of them to 2 of them, and then the third one, it doesn't quite match up with
the second one. Is kind of like it's like half a remake of one, and then a continuation, and then the weird continuity error at the end that happens between the end of 2 and the start of 3. And it's all a bit weird.
But in the TV show, they did a little callback to that the other on one of the episodes, where he's trying to recreate what happened, and he's going, it's like, the book was down there, or was it over there? A reference to it changing positions in the different movies. It's nice.
And Army of Darkness as well. That was
that is a hilariously wonderful film. I love that.
And so some of the visual effects in the Army of Darkness is pretty phenomenal for kind of pre-CGI. All the practical effects in there were really good. So Evil Dead was my horror choice.
Cool. One last one for you, sir.
Okay, I'm going to go as a little bit of a nod to Sir John Hurt, who we lost last year. A Midnight Express. It's one which I've just watched recently myself. And, obviously John Hurt died, so I wanted to kind of look up some of his films. And something you could say for him anyway is that he always picked different roles. You definitely couldn't stereotype this guy, and has so much of a more interesting career for it. He maybe could have been even more successful if he hadn't, but he's got a better portfolio of films to look back on, And the character he's playing in this is so different. Have you guys seen the film?
I haven't seen it, no.
It's about this guy who is smuggling drugs through customs in Turkey, and he gets sent to this sort of really unpleasant prison over there, and in there he meets John Hurt, who's playing this chemist who is dealing with, he's basically dealing with drugs in the prison, and he doesn't even look like John Hurt. He's got these little round glasses, he's got this ginger beard, he just looks so kind of quirky and so weird, and he's got this insane giggle which he does all through it. And I mean, a large part of why I say you need to see this is just to see him being so different, and this is a man who always does different things in his roles. Managed to find another level of different, almost unrecognisable. But the shooting of the film is beautiful as well. It's kind of it's shot across Morocco, and you've got some really nice scenes in the market and vista kind of scenes of the area, and it's so interesting and quirky. It's perhaps not, in hindsight, the whole movie perhaps kind of goes on a bit long. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but it's very beautiful to watch, and kind of just John Hurt's just amazing. He's just such a weird character, and I think that's why I kind of, as a Doctor Who fan, like what meant a lot to me is that no matter what role he took on, he took it seriously. He wasn't above a role. It's like, oh, that's Doctor Who, that's sci-fi. He never did none of that. It was just, it's a good role. I want to play that role. That's a really interesting part you've written for me. This drug dealing character in prison, it's like, I'm pretty sure a lot of actors would have, if some didn't, turn their nose up and go, I'm not playing that. But he's going, yeah, I can put an insane giggle there, it would be great,
Okay, excellent. And one last one from you, sir.
Oh dear me, so many to choose from. It's difficult. I'd say anything by John Carpenter.
Okay, it's tough to choose one. I'd say
it is.
And for me, it would have to be between Prince of Darkness and The Thing.
For me, it'd be Assault on Precinct 13.
Oh no, I was going to say that because, interestingly enough, I watched Assault on Precinct 13 for the first time in 15 years or something. And then I was just the sequence with the ice cream van and everything like that. I just watched it and I was like, "Oh my goodness!"
Yeah, it's so brutal.
I know, but it's great. It is at a time where you could push things like that, or people like John Carpenter. Funny enough, I actually saw him play live at the Colston Hall in Bristol.
Oh, nice!
Him and his band with video projections playing live scores.
He was doing that tour fairly recently.
Yeah, which was amazing. And I've heard a podcast with him. I think it was on Mark Maron actually, and he's a great guy. Total no nonsense guy. What he wanted, he went for, and made no excuses for it. But yeah, and it looks beautiful as well. Assault on Precinct 13, especially the new prints of it and the HD prints.
It still stands up. The remake was
but it lost that thing. It lost
the shock.
Yeah. But it was basically, it's a zombie movie, really, wasn't it? But
it was, because it was more or less remade beat for beat with Ghost of Mars.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same sort of film.
Yeah. And obviously the score on all John Carpenter movies are John Carpenter. So and it was quite interesting as well, because he doesn't know how to play. He basically said he just gets a keyboard and just has a go.
But he understands it, like the Halloween score. He understands
exactly.
It's a 5/4 time signature. It's designed to mess with you right from the start.
So the thing is, it's always nice hearing stories, and especially for people that are sort of want to get into film or TV and stuff, and they think, but I'm not good enough because those people over there are good enough because they're there. What do I know? And then you see, your Peter Jacksons and Sam Raimis and John Carpenters that come up with these things that are iconic and groundbreaking. So it's great that you hear these stories and you go, oh, you know what? If they're doing it, why can't we do it? So,
absolutely.
So a good watch and a good score as well. So
is that Assault on Precinct 13 you're going with?
I have to, but the thing and the fog and I don't know. There's all too many, but yeah, I would say Assault on Precinct 13, even though I prefer the thing as a movie myself.
Well, what did you think of the new one and how that kind of tied in?
Well, at the time when I saw a trailer for it and I didn't know anything about it, I was immediately outraged, going, "Oh, they're remaking it, and why, and everything." But obviously, it was kind of a prequel, and it did tie in very nicely. I don't think the actors were anywhere near as strong as the original. But unfortunately, like Prometheus we were talking about earlier, there seems to be a running theme that acting doesn't seem that important anymore in movies to a certain extent. It's spectacle.
Yeah, the spectacle.
You sort of have to look for acting.
Yeah. But no, it did work really well. It did tie in.
Yeah, I liked it because I think I watched The Thing first, then I watched the new one, then I watched The Thing again, just to see how it all married up, and it was quite nice. It explained a lot of things, and especially when he goes over and you see the base and you understand why the axe is in the wall and stuff.
Yeah,
I thought that was really nice how they managed to tie the two together quite so well.
Yeah, no, it's good. We do love a bit of Carpenter.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay, well, I think we're running up to we've got about 5 minutes left, I think.
Really?
yeah, we're down to 5 minutes.
Did you have anything else to get off your chest?
Well, I mean, I can always finish it on a downer and say that it appears to be the year that I'm going to be very disappointed with movies, because I saw the Ghost in the Shell trailer. Have you guys seen that yet?
The one that they've been playing on TV, I've seen.
Okay, it was ahead of Wolverine, and what it looks like from what I've seen of the trailer is that they've taken some set pieces from the anime, recreated them utterly faithfully, and tacked a completely different storyline around it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really annoying when they do this. It's they don't ever have faith in the source material, and that gets really annoying. I mean, I think we're starting to see it with films like Logan, for instance, and they need to learn that, the reason why these built up as these huge icons to people is because they're great, because these kind of original source materials, whether it's comics or anime or whatever, people love them.
Yeah.
Why mess about with it and make it generic? A lot of the time that's what they do. It's just they kind of dull it down. Like, I mean, I was actually having a very intense conversation, which I tend to, about this film, about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy film, because to me that was such a quirky original book, and then they made a generic love story. They tried to tack that on, I felt. And
I was really angry with the film.
I was very, very disappointed with it.
But then I had to calm myself down a little bit by going, the radio show was slightly different. It's just a different.
Well, yeah, it's slightly different.
I didn't like Arthur and Trillian getting together. I was just like, no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
with you on that.
Disappointed by what Ghost in the Shell looks like, because it is one of my favourite films of all time. So I was always a massive cyberpunk fan in the 90s. Yeah.
I'm going to throw myself on that live grenade of being the last thing to be a downer and say the Justice League trailer came out yesterday.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen this, but I know it's going to be disappointing as a film anyway. That's just a given.
Yeah. So the Justice League trailer is parademons everywhere, and that's it. It's just parademons.
Oh dear. Okay, well, yeah.
Well, I suppose they still have the models from Batman vs Superman, so it's cheap.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'd just love to see any of the characters not being a Batmanized version of themselves. Like, I love Batman. I think it's such a wonderful character. They've even sort of taken a bit of the magic from his character, I feel, but I mean, I think Ben Affleck did a fairly decent job.
I thought he was the best thing about BVS.
But they did with Superman. They've just tried to make him Batman. Like, they've tried to make him a more grim, not as hopeful.
But it's because their mums have the same name.
Well, yeah, exactly. Besties. I just hate this whole idea that it's like, why can't they're so scared of having a character who's hopeful, and I hate that. I think part of what makes Superman's job, people always say, it's like, oh yeah, but he's immortal, he's immune to everything but kryptonite. How do you destroy him? It's like, well, because his other kryptonite, if you will, is the fact that he's got to save everyone. Yeah. So when he's put in a hopeless situation where you can't be in two places at once, even at his speed, that's crippling. Like, Batman can just go, I can't save more. I'll just get as many as I can. Superman can't do that. Yeah. Superman shouldn't be able to do that, and he shouldn't be just snapping necks and stuff. He could have flown to the moon. Anyway, I won't get into that. But they're just trying to make everyone into that, and I worry that's what they're going to do with The Flash and with Cyborg.
I think we'll be constantly disappointed.
Yeah, I will watch it, because if I'm going to slam it, I've got to watch it.
So did you see BVS at the cinema?
Yeah,
I did as well.
My commiserations.
I made the mistake of being
the extended
told,
version.
I was told the extended version was better, and so I got it on Blu-ray and I watched it. Well, no, I actually accidentally watched the theatrical version again instead, and went, "Well, that wasn't any different." And I went, "Oh no!" And I had to watch it again. And granted, the extended version was slightly less crap.
Although by the third watching, had you just got Stockholm syndrome?
Yeah, absolutely. I will like this film. Okay, cool. So all it remains is to thank our guests for joining us, which was lovely and impromptu, Dr. Squee and John Davey. We are going to be at the Sci-Fi Weekend next weekend. So we're doing a live recording of a show there. So if you're at Sci-Fi Weekend, come and join us in the Owners Lounge at 4:30 on the Saturday. It will be us and whichever guests we can kidnap from around the site and force on stage with us. Come along and join us, and we'll be doing loads of various panels around the weekend. So
it's too late to call shotgun on that.
Well, by all means, come and join us, sir.
We'll be at the UK Games Expo in June, and a date for your diary. Star Wars Celebrations in Orlando starts in about 2 or 3 weeks. So make sure to check the live streams, because I'm fairly positive we will see an Episode 8 trailer reveal.
Sweet.
But aside from that, that's all for this extended live episode of Nerdbusters World. I've been Brendan.
I've been Spindles.
And until next time, take care and be excellent to each other. Ta-da!
The Southampton Superpod. 36 hours of podcasts. Broadcast live from the Grand Harbour Hotel in Southampton.